Hello everybody, welcome to Catherine Sews. Thank you so much for joining me today. You know what, I just thrifted this outfit and I did not even realize how awesome it is until now, right? I just put the two pieces on together and I just want to alter this up and get it fitting me right so that I can wear this out. I absolutely love this. Isn't this so cute? So this is this, well, it's not exactly crocheted, but sort of crochet style top. And then these fantastic pants that are long and flowy, super like palazzo pants, right? So it's got that 70s vibe that I've been into these days, but everything is so long. Like these sleeves are like crazy long on me, and so are the pants. I'm walking all over the bottom of the pants. It's kind of crazy, but once I tweak it, this is gonna be a beautiful outfit. So what I'm gonna do is first of all, hem the pants. That's the easy part. But you know what? These are like a silky knit, which is not always easy to work with. So I've got my little friend here, the knit stay tape, and I think there's a link in my description. I'll make sure that it's there. I wish I had black, I don't, but this will be fine. But that's what helps control the knit when you do your hem on that silky knit. So I'm gonna do that. And then the top is a little bit more involved. It's mainly the sleeves. And of course I don't want to just cut off the beautiful lace, right? So I'm going to be shortening them from the top. And it's a lot, like I think it's about 4 inches I'm taking off. But then also the neckline is pretty, but it's just a little sloppy. So I'm going to actually be picking that up at the shoulder as well, because the sleeve has to come off anyway. So I might as well do everything I want to do. And then there are 2 seams at the side. So I'm going to be taking in one of them just to trim it down around the waist, just to make it a little more flattering around the waist, not quite so boxy. So I think this is going to be fantastic. So if that sounds good to you, then let's get busy. So I turned up the pants and tried them on with like sort of an average height of shoe, and that's 4.5 inches. So I just want to take an average. You can let your pants go a bit longer in the back, but generally I find kind of an average and then just do that. So it's 4.5 at the side seams. That means that's where I want it to finish, right? 4.5 from the bottom. I want it to finish there. So I want to have a hem probably about like what is originally there. So that's a little bit more than 1/2 inch. Let's call that 5/8. But you know what, just for the ease of my math skills, I'm going to say that I'll cut off 4 inches. So I want both pant legs together, all nice and even. Look how wide these pants are at the bottom. Like they are definitely palazzo pants. So I just spend a minute making sure they're all nice and even and smooth. No wrinkles underneath the lower layers. Making sure my edges are all together so I can take off an even 4 inches all the way around. And then just cut right on that line. Now, if this was a stable fabric, like a woven fabric or even a heavier knit, I would just take it right to the serger. But a couple of things about that. First of all, the knit's not going to fray, right? You don't actually have to serge this. And so that's the first thing. You don't really have to serge, but I'm going to because I like it. I think it gives such a nice, neat finish. Second thing is before I serge, that's when my little buddy is going to come in, the knit stay tape. I'm going to take that to the iron and iron that to the lower edge before I serge so that this tape gets caught into the serging. And what this does is that it just gives that little bit of stability. This can't stretch, or it doesn't stretch much, so it stops the bottom edge of the pants from stretching and going all wiggly. So let's go to the iron. So this knit stay tape is from Silky's E and extremely fine fusible. So it irons on and is super handy to have. So you'll feel there's a bumpy side and a smooth side. And of course the bumpy side are the little dots of glue. And I've got my iron not too hot because I don't really know how well that fabric takes the heat. In fact, let me just try it out on a scrap. Oh, I think that fabric is going to be just fine. Okay, so right along my bottom edge on the wrong side of the fabric. Okay, so I'll do both legs like that, and then we'll go to the serger. And I wish you could feel it because it really does just make it so much more stable. Like it really works nicely. Okay, so I am serging, but you can definitely skip this step. But I think I'm just a sergaholic, so here I go. Oh yes, people mentioned that my serger is looking a bit loopy lately. I think I will tighten up my tension, see what that does. Oh, that is better. Yes, thank you for the comments that it was loopy. That is a bit ridiculous, isn't it? Sometimes I don't care that much, but yeah, it's nicer if it's not all loopy. I like to serge with the good side up. It just makes the nicer side of the serging show. This is just a universal needle. We'll see if this needle is going to behave itself with this stretchy knit. And no problem at all. But having that stay tape in there is so nice. Like it's really making the whole hem just behave itself. Okay, so we'll just call that done. Good. So to figure out how much I want to take off the sleeve, I know I'm taking it off the top, but to figure out how much to take off, it's got this scallopy edge here, which is so pretty. But what I'm going to do is make a fold here around the elbow. Anywhere is fine. Make a fold so that the length is good. And whatever I'm pinching here is how much I need to take off. So this is where I wish I had more friends. I'm going to make a little mark at the top of the fold and the bottom of the fold. And I'm not taking it out of that area, right? This is just telling me how much to take out. So when I unfold it now, you see my two green marks. I've got a green mark there, and this is my friction erasable pen, and a green mark there. So that's my amount that I need to take off the top. And then for the shoulder, I can't take off a ton because of the back neck, right? I don't want to have to try to redo this little edge on the back neck. I'll just take off whatever I can, which is probably about an inch. So I'll do that. And then the body, I'll have to pop it back on after I do all of that to take in the body because I just don't know how it's going to be fitting at that point. All right, so let's do the top now. So to remove the sleeve is actually not too much of a problem. I can see a single line of stitching right over this nicely finished edge of the sleeve. So I think I can carefully just pull out that thread and then, yep, it's just two nicely finished edges overlapped and sewn down. I might not be able to replicate that when I put it back together, but it certainly is not a problem to take apart. All right, so that's going to take a little bit of time and patience, so I will just head over to the kitchen table and remove both of these sleeves. Okay, so the sleeves are off, and here are my two green lines that I drew while I was wearing it, and they are 3 inches apart. So I'm going to be taking 3 inches off the top. So normally with knits, I just cut right through. I just treat it like fabric, but I gotta say, I'm a tiny bit worried about how open this knit is. So I'm a little worried. I don't think I can just chop right into it. I don't think. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to mark 3 inches down from this point. I'll use blue so you can see it a bit better. Then I'll take this sleeve, and the sleeves taper quite a bit. So once I'm down those 3 inches, it's a lot skinnier. And I don't want to lose all of this shape. So I'm going to kind of like compress it. Does that make sense? And I want to make sure I'm 3 inches down here too, a little bit more. So basically like that. And I'll be doing the front and back the same, you know. Sometimes on a very tailored piece, the front and back will be different, but I'll do these the same just to cut myself some slack here. So I'll just draw that. And then I have to draw both sides because what I'm thinking is I'm going to zigzag that line first before I cut it. That makes sense? So I'll go here. There's where I'm connecting to there. And I'll have to repeat this again on the other sleeve. Or less. I don't want to lose too much width here, so I don't want to just come in skinny, right? I don't want to lose all the width at the shoulder. So maybe that is good. So I will zigzag on the outermost line. No problem. Okay, so for this one, 3 inches down here, 3 inches down here. You don't just go 3 inches in all the way around because you do get super skinny in here, right? So just make your 2 measurements, and like here it's less than 3 inches because of the shape that you don't want to lose all that width, right? See what I mean? Like it's 3 inches and 3 inches, but it's not consistently 3 inches or else you'd have a very skinny sleeve. Okay, so you get the idea? like that. That should be nice. Okay. So now at the sewing machine, I'm just going to go over that line with my zigzag. Hopefully I'll be able to see it well enough. We'll see. So I've got a zigzag set for 3.5 millimeters wide and 2 long. And I'll use the free arm for this so that I can get that sleeve all the way around like that. Good. And I can see my blue line now, no problem. So I just slipped my arm into the sleeve to check, and it seemed like I really needed a bit more on the back. So forget what I said about making them symmetrical. The back did need a little bit more. And you know what? Look, I can barely see my zigzag line here. I can more or less feel it along that blue line. So I think that's going to work. Like, it's going to look nice. So because I can't even see it, I'll just go over the purple part now with my new line. That's quite a difference. It's almost an extra inch on the back there. And then I kind of put the two sleeves together and trace like a mirror image from one onto the other so that this one also has that extra inch on it. Okay, so maybe there you can see my zigzag line. It really just looks exactly the same as the threads going this way. It's going this way. So now I think I will cut a little ways out from my zigzag line. Here goes nothing. I'm going to now cut a little bit above my line. Please don't be fooled and think that I'm very brave. I'm actually so scared right now. Even though this top did not cost me anything much, but I really like it and I want it to work. Well, that looks kind of good. Boy, oh boy, it's super hard to see that line though. But you know what else? I think that this knit or lace or whatever it is more stable than I had originally thought. I'm probably fine. Lives are not at stake here. Good. There we go. Okay. Sleeves are ready to go back in. So the neckline now. Do you see what I mean? That I can't just kind of come down there because I definitely need these edges to match. So I'm going to bring that edge over. I'm kind of stretching it over a bit. And that's why I can only go about an inch, right? Because it gets ridiculous. Somewhere in there. So those edges absolutely have to stay nailed together. I think, you know what? Look, it's going to be fine, right? The front is just sort of stretching to meet the back there. No big problem. And in a case like this, I do like pins better than clips so that I can kind of draw myself a line with the pins, you know? And then I can make sure that the pins are kind of right in line with each other. And you can't really do that with clips, right? Clips are just not quite as precise as pins. Same on the outer edge. Good. And then you know what? I think I'll use that same zigzag stitch just to go across there. And maybe I'll do double line or something. We'll see. Okay, so yes, I'm using the same zigzag stitch as before. And I want to keep these edges of the neckline just nailed together. No problem there, and I'll do something about that excess fabric. So by sinking my needle down first before I go, it helps keep them nailed together because the presser foot and the feed dogs will kind of shift it. Okay, looking good. So I should try that on to check the neckline and make sure that's good before I cut off this extra. But before I do that, I'm going to do a little bit of fitting on the back. Okay, because remember when I had it on, I showed you that there are two side seams. Like this is like a side panel. So I want to take a little bit off that side panel. So I've opened it up here and I'm going to overlap more. And I think I want to try to get a good inch out of the middle. I didn't open up the whole thing. I don't want to disturb this part of the lace, and that's around the hip. I don't need it to come in there. It's right kind of at the back waist. It'll just be a little bit more flattering if it kind of comes in a little bit there. Not tight, but just skimming so that it gives me a little bit of a shape. So I'm just overlapping and I'm pinning the edge of this one. I probably should do it from the outside, but I'm inside out here, so I might as well continue. I'm just pinning there, catching the edge of the
body, not this side panel. And I'm just going to do a basting stitch right there. I think that it's not enough to have it pinned to try on because the pins are just going to be falling out and just a mess. So I'll just do a basting stitch down that edge and then try the whole. This is very fiddly. Oh dear. So I will just baste and then try it on. And if you're wondering why I don't turn it right side out so that I can more easily see the edge that I'm sewing on, you are correct. That is exactly what I should do to make this a bit easier. But here we go. I don't know. So I'm following this edge. That's what I can see through this crochet lace stuff. And I'm just doing that basting stitch so that if I need to adjust it, I can easily pull that out and try again. But if it works, I'll just go over this with the zigzag. And then I think I might be safe just to trim away the excess. Okay, so there's just that overlap. And I didn't change it at all under the arm or the hip, just like halfway between.
Okay, so the neckline is a little bit better. That 1 inch did help, but I'd kind of like to go a little bit more if I can. Or maybe elasticize the neck somehow, like with an elastic thread. I might just play around with that. I might just see if I can take a little bit more off the neck. And then the body is also better, right? It kind of comes in a bit, but again, I'd like to go a little bit more. And maybe I'll have to take it off the front as well. I'll just have to play around with that. So now the sleeve looks like it's going to go on, and boy, am I ever glad that I left that extra inch at the back, because even as it is, that looks like it definitely needs it, right? So hopefully that goes on okay, but I think we're getting there.
Okay, so first of all, let's see if I can sneak another 1/2 inch or so out of the neckline. And maybe I can go straight across so that I'm not taking any more out of the armhole, right? I'll just go straight across to that. That might be good. And before I sew that, I'll just pop it over my head and make sure that's going to be okay. So I will turn my pin inward so I don't gouge myself. And then go straight across to, like, I know you can't see, but that is my line of sewing from the first try. So there's that. And then before I pop it back on, I tried moving this, like when I did that overlap, I was aiming to get twice as much of that, but it just didn't kind of flow nice, but I'll try again. If you think you're having a hard time seeing what I'm doing, so am I. Really, really tough to see the thread in the lace. And of course, I dread pulling the wrong thing. So before I pull anything, I make sure, like I kind of tested a couple times to make sure it's the right thing to pull. So I'll see if I can get that to overlap a little bit more than it was. And it doesn't seem to volunteer, that's for sure. But I'm going to try to be just a bit more persuasive this time. And you know what? I will flip it so that I'm sewing it on the right side out. That'll help, I think. So I'm making the side panel smaller rather than taking from both. I think it makes sense what I'm doing because I don't want to mess around with it below the hip or really at the armhole. So I don't think I have much choice in terms of how I do this. I can't just sort of, take the seam in a normal way. Okay, I'll see if I can make sense of that. Maybe that's okay. All right, I'll try. Okay, so the shoulder seam now, I want to just start at the armhole edge. I want to start in the same place where I was, but then come straight across. And yes, I had used a zigzag stitch for this, didn't I? And then I kind of have to ease the back into the front so that I can keep those edges together at the neckline. Okay, I'll try that on one more time, and then if it's good, then we'll talk about finishing off those seams. So I did end up taking some off of the front sections as well, just with that basting stitch. And now that I know I'm happy, I'm going over everything, all of the seams that I changed, I'm going over with a zigzag because then I'll trim away the underside. So this zigzag really needs to kind of hold that edge together so that I can safely trim. Alrighty, and then the shoulder seams, I will also zigzag before I trim. And I think I'm going to zigzag them like from the outside, just because I could zigzag the edge on the inside, but that'll look quite different from the other seams. So I think I'm going to try the same idea here, where I zigzag almost like a little top stitch. And when I'm doing this little zigzag on top of the shoulder seam, I've got all that big seam allowance pushed toward the back. The back is wider, so it's a little more, it just goes toward the back better. I always push seams toward the back anyway. Okay, I think I can trim off excess now. A little scary, but let's go. So with my little scissors, I love these little Henkels. There's a link to them in the description. I have a little bit more confidence cutting away this extra with small, sharp scissors. This seems to be okay. Good. So let's just check what that seam looks like before I do all the rest in the same way. Well, that looks just fine, right? It kind of looks more or less like the original seam. So if I didn't trim it away, you'd see all of that, right? It doesn't look so nice. This looks better. Okay. So trim away. Okay, so I'll trim all of those and the shoulder seams too. All right, so I'll trim all of that and then we'll set the sleeves back in. So the sleeve is right side out. It's inside the armhole. The body of the garment is inside out and it seems to be fitting nicely. And I'm going to use clips because the pins will just fall out and I don't need to kind of draw a line for myself with pins. I'm just sewing around a circle. The seam of the sleeve is halfway in between the seams of the side panel and it seems to be fitting in there nicely. So that extra, like where I've got the blue and purple lines, that is going, I just want to make sure, yes, it's definitely going toward the back. That is where I needed that extra. And I can't really do the overlap here around the curve of the armhole. I don't think I can make that work. So that's why I'm just going right sides together. Same kind of idea. I'm just going to be zigzagging on that finished edge. And then that seam is going to be on the inside. It's just, hopefully it's going to look kind of the same as the other seams, but I just can't picture an overlapping way of doing an armhole. So the neck edge came together pretty nice, right? Like I was worried that there was going to be a bit of a jog there, but it looks normal and natural. That's fine. Okay, back to the machine for that zigzag around the armholes. And I don't think I'm going to be using the serger at all for this whole top. I think the zigzag is just a good way to go for this. Although right here might be a good time to serge. We'll see. Seems pretty good. I think I will zigzag it again from the outside just for security, but also to make it look like the other seams. So now is just that final little zigzag around the sleeve just to make sure it's secure. So I'm going to do it from the inside just so I can kind of push the seam allowance toward the body as I go. Yeah, this is making me feel like that seam is a lot more secure. There, I think that seam looks fine. Some thread still to trim, but the seam itself looks good. I'll do the other sleeve like that, and then it's just a final press to make sure the seams are all sitting nice and to get rid of my friction pen marks. Okay, trim threads, final press, here we go. So I'm just gonna steam all of those seams so they sit nice. And that's always a good time to check for more threads. And this is a cotton lace, so it can take a lot of heat. All my lines get erased. Oh, and I can see my original zigzag line that was way down there, so I will need to pull that out. So one tiny bit of stitch removal, and then I'll show you the finished product.
Okay, it's done, and I love it. I knew I would love it. There was no doubt, right? I just think this is such a pretty top, such groovy pants, and I love the two pieces together. I like that the lace still comes down into the back of my hand. That looks really pretty, but it's not like crazy long. And the body is just a lot more trim, not tight, but it just gives a little bit of a shape, a little
little bit more flattering. The neckline worked out really nice. Remember, it was sort of showing the edge of my camisole, and so now it's up at a proper place. And even the back neck. The back neck is still fine too. That side panel is now just a shaped piece instead of the straight piece that it was. And that made all the difference. So, yeah. So I'm heading out on a boat to watch fireworks here in the harbor at Vancouver. It's gonna be a beautiful evening and I'm gonna wear this. So hold on for some pictures from there. I think that'll be really, really nice. Thanks for being with me all the way to the end. I always love that. And until next time on Catherine Sews, you take care.